Today we're going to take a look at the Ranger class and why you might consider playing one in your next game. So be sure to grab a bow and let's track your favorite enemy here on Rolling with Advantage. Today, as we dive in and take a look at the Ranger class, I want to go ahead and stare the elephant down in the room and say, hey, look, this is not a bad class, okay? I know a lot of people will look at the Ranger and go, oh, but it's not the best range class. It's not the best melee class. It's not the best scout or rogue. You know, there's a lot of things that the Ranger does, but it doesn't do it as well as everything else. And there's this mentality in gaming that if it's not the best, then it's the worst. And I feel that in some games I understand that, but in this game, in a tabletop RPG, I don't think it's a good way to look at something because we have to look at the strengths of the Ranger, and I think they're just fun to play. Look at the Ranger as kind of like a bard. I know a lot of people don't give bards the hate that Rangers get, and I think that's wrong because I think in a lot of ways the bard and the Ranger are very similar in the fact that they are a hybrid of sorts that do a lot of different things, and they can fill a lot of different roles to the party. So when you're looking at building a Ranger, there's a lot of fun things that we can do, and I'm going to show you how to kind of maximize their flexibility with this build today. Now, for the race, you want to take something that has good dexterity. Now, of course, in the world of D&D, any race can be anything, but to really kind of maximize the idea of being a jack of all trades in the nature world, we want to build something like this. So the way we're going to look at it is, if the Ranger can do a little bit of everything, then let's help him do that, okay? So the Tabaxi, in my opinion, is a great race pick for a Ranger. One, let's admit it, cats are fun to play. The main reason is that they get a +2 to dexterity, and the +1 to charisma is fun, but we want to have a high dex when you're playing a Ranger. Whether you're building it for dual wield or you're building it as an archer, either way you're going to want to have high dexterity. Now, when we look at the Tabaxi, we get a lot of things for it. First, we get the +2 to dex, +1 to charisma. Those are great. We also get dark vision, which you're going to be out in the nature, sneaking around, something you're going to want to have. Feline Agility is a great ability. What this allows us to do is when we move, we can double our speed until the end of turn. And once I use that trait, I can't use it again until I don't move for turn. So you have to kind of like rest before you do it again. Now, this ability is crazy because today we're going to take a look at building an archer, which I think is perfect for Feline Agility, particularly if I'm using a longbow. I can get crazy range and just pick people off from a crazy distance. The other thing that's really good is cat's claws. Now, yeah, in a pinch we can use, this as a weapon, but because we're not really going to have a lot of strength with this character, this is more something fun to do, role play, tavern brawl type of thing. The thing that I like about this is it gives me a climbing speed. Now, one little combo here is I get a climbing speed of 20 feet. If I use Feline Agility, I can double it. So I could run up something extremely fast if I wanted to maybe get on that perch at the beginning of combat to start shooting down my arrows. So neat little combo we have right there. Now, for cat's talent, I love any race that gives me 2 skills out of the gate. To me, that's amazing. And not only that, we're getting perception and stealth, which is 2 of the best skills in the game. This is perfect 2 skills to pick for a Ranger. It does get a language as well. Since we're going to be out and we're going to be the nature person, why not have Sylvan? Okay, so we're going to go over here and pick up race. Now, Ranger, before we do that, let's look at abilities. We don't need strength. Now, under point buy, all I'm saying is this can be your lowest stat. Dexterity, we want to put a 14 there. We get another 2 points for being a Tabaxi, so that's going to be 16. 12 in Constitution, because, hey, hit points are a good thing. 12 in Intelligence. Now, I know some people might dump Intelligence for more Constitution. I personally want to have a little bit of Intelligence, and I'll show you why here in a second. 14 to Wisdom, and then I put a 13 in Charisma. Give me another +1 for my race, puts me at 14. So, stats are 8, 16, 12, 12, 14, 14. Pretty good array, nothing terrible, nothing great, just good middle of the road. And I'll show you some of the strengths here. Now, for the class, Ranger is one of the few classes that get 3 skill selections for skill proficiencies. Bard and Rogue get it as well, but Ranger gets it too, and I think a lot of people sleep on this. So for my skills, I'm going to take Animal Handling, Survival, and Nature. Now let's go ahead and pause for a second. Let's go over to Description. I'm going to show you my background. I'm taking Urchin. This gets me Sleight of Hand. It also gives me the ability to pick up Acrobatics. I also get Disguise Kit and Thieves Tools. So the idea that I want to have a Ranger that is going to do well what it's intended to, and that is a lot of different things. It's very varied in what it can do. I now have 7 skills. I have 2 for being a Tabaxi, I have 3 for being a Ranger, and I have another 2 in my background. So now I'm kind of a skill monkey. I'm a little bit of the person that can run around and do a little bit of everything. Also, look at the skills that I've gotten. I've gotten Perception, I've gotten Stealth for being a cat's talent. For class, I've picked up Animal Handling, Survival, and Nature, and then I also picked up Acrobatics and Sleight of Hand, so I can fill the role of Scout or Rogue, and also have Thieves Tools, so that's a lot that I'm going to be able to do out of combat, okay? For favorite enemy, you get to pick another language. I picked Orc, and now for Beast, here's the thing. Favorite enemy and both Natural Explorer are 2 abilities that are either really good or really bad, and a lot of this depends on not just you, but also your DM. Before you come into a game and you're going to play a campaign, you should ask, what game are we playing? Where are we going to be located? The reason is that these are things that are important to know, because you don't want to pick, you know, hey, I'm going to choose Beast, and you're going to be dealing in an area that never going to see Beast. I take Beast because you can kind of see this a little bit everywhere. The point is, make sure you talk to your DM and say, hey, what are we actually going to be doing? I'd like these abilities to be in effect. Forest is kind of the default for Natural Explorer. The idea here is that, you know, you're really good at not getting lost, you need to get double proficiency, you don't have to worry about difficult terrain, that type of thing. But if you're not going to be playing in a forest, it's no good. Let's say you talk to your DM and he says, hey, I want to run Icewind Dale. Well, maybe taking Arctic is better. I would just talk to them about this. So forest is kind of the default. A lot of games still in the woods. But again, talk to your DM. These abilities, a lot of times people say, oh, they're not that great, but a lot of it depends on the interaction between you and the DM. Okay, these abilities can be amazing if played correctly. All right, fighting style. We're going to be choosing archery. I already said we're going to make an archer. I like the idea of a cat kind of running back with his feline agility and then picking people off from a distance. So that's what we're going to do. We pick up spellcasting at level 2. We'll circle back to that. For the Ranger art type, we're going to be picking up Hunter. Of all the options, I like Hunter. One, I like the idea of my Ranger out hunting in the wild. A cat is a hunter. I like that. And of the abilities that you can pick for that, we can take Colossus Slayer, Giant Killer, or Horde Breaker. I personally like Colossus Slayer. The idea behind this is when I make a weapon attack, if that target has already taken damage, if at any point, if it's just below its hit point maximum, I can deal an additional D8 damage. Now, that really adds a lot in the fact that I can do it every single turn. It's almost like a mini smite for you Paladin players out there that you get to do over and over and over again, okay? At level 4, we're going to take Sharpshooter. Now, feats are not guaranteed. You need to talk to your DM and be sure that they are allowed. It is an optional rule. If they are, I would take Sharpshooter. What Sharpshooter is going to allow you to do is you don't get disadvantage at taking attacking with range. Now, you got to think you're already going to be shooting at a huge distance with Feline Agility, depending on the scenario. And you don't have to worry about cover as well, as far as you can ignore half and 3/4 cover. The other big thing with this is that you can choose before you attack to take a -5 to your attack roll to do an extra +10 to damage. Now, there's a lot of times you're going to have to be doing some math in your head on when you should do this. It's pretty simple. If you have advantage on the attack, always use it. Just roll the dice and see. I think statistically, more often than not, you're going to land this. Unless you're fighting something with crazy high AC, I would almost always use this. There's such a huge delta on how much damage you can do with the +10. So, and we can mitigate some of this with the fact that we took the archery fighting style. So that is what, and at level 5 we get extra attack. So Spells, here's the 4 spells that I like to highlight. Your spell selection for Ranger kind of comes from the Druid world, the nature spells. I like Hunter's Mark is the first one we need to talk about. That is a Ranger, it should be like a identifying ability for the class. What you're going to do with Hunter's Mark is you're going to, as a bonus action, start your turn, you're going to target, cast it on somebody. It is a concentration spell, which is another reason why I prefer an archer version of a ranger over the dual wield, because if you're up in someone's face, you're more often to take more damage, which means Hunter's Mark falls off. So I feel that this class is better played at range, and dual wield is kind of a backup option. So you're going to do that. Now, as soon as you do that and you hit somebody with your longbow, you're going to do a d6 of damage with the Hunter's Mark. You can do another d8 with the longbow. If they had already taken damage, you can deal another d8 with your Colossus Slayer. And then if you use Sharpshooter on top of that, we're talking about a d8, a d8, a d6 plus 10. That's a lot of damage that you can do every single turn. It doesn't take up a spell slot. There's not limited to how many times you can do it per short rest. You can just keep doing it. So what you also need to do is look for ways to kind of wombo combo with your team to help make sure that you get advantage on your attacks. Like, I'll give you an example. Let's say you've got someone in your party, maybe a nature paladin or somebody. Take it back. I say that because I have a character in our group that has fairy fire. The idea is that find ways to get advantage on all of your attacks. Okay, so if another character has an ability to help you do that, you know, whether it be with positioning or whether it be with a spell effect, find ways to get advantage. Always be sure you're kind of comboing with your party. All right. Other spells we like. For first level, a lot of people are going to go look at this list and they're going to pick Fog Cloud, they're going to pick Goodberry, and those are solid spells. I like Absorb Elements. You know that joke that goes around where it's not a campaign until the ranger dies? Well, maybe if you had Absorb Elements, that wouldn't have happened, okay? There's so many times I find that this spell will completely save you in a situation that might have outright killed you. Not to mention that sometimes you take some damage, you can use this as a reaction, and you can shoot some of that damage back at somebody. That's kind of how Absorb Elements works. But I look at this more as emergency evasion to not die. And I think it's a great spell to have. Healing Spirit, did I mention Rangers can also kind of act as a quasi-healer? Because they can. I don't think in a combat-heavy game they're going to end up being like the primary healer. That being said, I've seen Healing Spirit do a lot of work. The idea behind this is, now this does use your concentration, so you can't have this and Hunter's Mark going at the same time. So you have to kind of be judicious on where you're going to use this. However, I have seen Healing Spirit completely save the day on more than one occasion. And the idea is that this thing is cast and it kind of floats around the battlefield, and whoever's closest to it, you know, your allies can continually heal off of this. Again, because it's concentration, it's another reason why I think this character needs to stay back, shooting arrows into combat and not being up front dual wielding. I actually really prefer the Ranger to be one of my ranged characters, pun intended, I guess. The idea here is that I run a very tactile game, and I like the idea of having the mini on the board kind of floating around to show the Healing Spirit. And for an RP-wise, maybe you could write something in your game where you actually met a sprite or a fairy or whatever it is that you're summoning out to heal. Maybe it's a named ally that you call on to come into combat. For some reason, every time I think this thing is cast, I think about the fairy in Legend of Zelda coming out. I don't know. It's just it's what I grew up with. So the idea is that this is something you can pull out in emergency to heal everybody. Other spell I like is Silence. Silence is one of those spells that a really crafty character can find a lot of uses for it. It's great for stealthing around if you need to, but the other big thing that's great about it is if you see an enemy spellcaster, you can actually cast Silence in the area that they're at. You'd be surprised how many spells in the game require a verbal part of component as far as the casting ability. So I highly recommend picking up Silence. You'll be surprised how many times that you'll find uses for it. Now, Ranger is not someone that's going to be casting a ton of spells, so we have to be very guided on exactly what we're trying to do with our spells. Now, if you look at the other spell options, a lot of people like Fog Cloud. It's great. A lot of people like Goodberry. It's a solid spell as well. In fact, if you wanted to drop Absorb Elements for one of those, you could. I'm just saying I would run Absorb Elements. Now, as far as second level spells, Zephyr Strike is another one that's pretty popular. But the idea that you can hit somebody and then increase your movement. I feel that playing a Tabaxi, I've got Feline Agility, so I feel like I don't need it as much. And I also see people take, what's the other one? I see the Hail of Thorns. I see people use that as well. I think that because you have so few spell slots, they really need to adding a little bit of damage, or it's just not good enough to me if I've only got a handful of spells. Hunter's Mark is an automatic take. I like the Absorb Elements in a pinch. And I like having these other situational spells. Now, I realize they're all concentration, which is why they're going to be situational. But I think anytime your ranger casts one of these, it can be game-breaking. It can be really, really good for the party. So that's the way that I would play it. Now, let's talk equipment. There is a noob trap in making a ranger, and let me explain it to you. And it talks about armor. So one of the reasons that your rangers a lot of times find themselves getting into a lot of trouble, especially early in the game, is they don't have some of the damage mitigation that other martial characters have. Your paladin is going to have a higher armor. Your fighter is going to have higher armor. They're wearing heavy. Your barbarian is raging. They're taking less damage. And your ranger over there is going to have less armor. Maybe not as many hit points as a barbarian, and they're not usually using a shield either, so they are more apt to take more damage if they're playing the upfront martial character. So part of that goes in their armor choice. Now, a lot of people say, well, just take Scale Mail because you can start off with it and it gets you 16 armor class. Here's the problem in the trap with Scale Mail. Is one, it's extremely heavy, and some DMs will never touch that. But in my game, if you're wearing 50 pounds of armor, we're going to talk about it occasionally. Now, the trap with Scale Mail is not necessarily the weight, it's the fact that it gives you disadvantage in stealth. Now, to me, one of the Rangers' primary things they should be doing is sneaking around and scouting. So I don't want to have a situation where I've got to take on or take off armor to get around that. That takes forever. Or I've got to roll disadvantage on something that is my primary role. Like, to me, that's just a no. It's a no-go for me. So then we take leather armor. Well, here's the problem with leather armor. Leather armor only gives you 1 AC plus your dexterity modifier, which at this point is going to be +3. So we're going to have a 14 AC. You'd be surprised at the difference this game is difficulty-wise between a 14 and a 16 armor class. It's huge. There's something magical that happens in those two numbers where you're going to take a lot more damage. It's really weird how the math works, but it does. So here's what I think you do. I think you talk to your DM and say, I want studded leather to start the game. Now, studded leather costs around 45 gold. Your Scale Mail costs 50. You could say, can I take the Scale Mail, sell it, and trade it for studded leather? Or you also have the option to, when you do starting equipment, to pick gold, and then you could just take your gold this way and then go and buy it. Either way, start with studded leather. A lot of people just go through here, they take Scale Mail, and then they run down the road and realize, wow, that really messed me up. So here's what the first character is going to look like. So this is level 5. We're going to have 15 armor class. Which is a good middle, it's a good, okay, it's not 16, but I'll take 15, but I don't have to worry about having disadvantage on my stealth checks. Now, let's take a look at the skills that I'm bringing to the table, because that's one of the reasons to play a ranger is I've got acrobatics, I've got animal handling, I've got nature, which I think you really need to have nature if you're going to be the ranger. That's why I wanted to have a little bit higher intelligence. I have good perception, I've got sleight of hand, stealth, and survival. So I am your scout, rogue, and I have some of the knowledge skills as well that I would need to have. Animal handling is another great one to have. It's not just in calming a beast or anything, it's also horseback riding, mounted combat. All of that would be animal handling. So this character can do a lot. It has ranged, it can melee in a pinch, and it can cast some really awesome spells to save the party. And out of combat, I have a lot of really good skills. Also, don't forget, this character has Thieves' Tools and a Disguise Kit. So there's a lot of things this character brings to the table at just level 5. So I don't know why there's so much hate out there for Rangers. I think we've fallen into this mentality. I think it's like an MMO mentality where if something isn't the best at something, it's the worst. And I think that's unfair, especially in D&D, in a tabletop RPG. I think that Rangers are a lot of fun to play. I think if we're trying to tell interesting stories and different, ideas, then I think there's a lot of interesting stories to tell about a Ranger. So I think we should see more Rangers at the table. I just think they should be played a little bit differently, maybe. I don't think they're your raging barbarian up front guy. I think they're the sneaky, stealthy guy in the back, offering good, magical support, archer. I think there's a lot of things this character can do. So this is not going to be a full build. We're not going to go all the way up to 20. If I were to play this character, I would play this character straight Ranger to level 5. From there, I might let the story tell me where I want to be. It's depending on what's going on. I like the idea of this character. If you're going to go straight Archer, take 3 levels in Fighter. You take, you could either go Champion for the extra crit damage, which would queue off of your Hunter and your Hunter's Mark. That'd be fun. You could also go Battle Master and pick up some trick shots, arrow to the knee type of thing. Or you could just play it straight Ranger, go all the way up and just be the best Ranger you can be. I think there's a lot of things that you can do with this. But the idea is that don't be afraid to play a Ranger. A lot of people will say that, oh, they're not that great. They're wrong. It's a really good class. There's a lot of fun things you can do with it. They're just played a little differently. If you have played a Ranger and you've got some cool wombo combo stuff, please let me know. I'd love to see it in the comments below. If you were thinking about playing a Ranger and you want to bounce some ideas off, by all means, let's talk about it in the comments. If you like this kind of content, be sure to like, subscribe to the channel. We're going to be doing more class breakdown videos like this one. I just wanted to attack the Ranger first because I feel like they get crapped on and they really shouldn't. I think it's a good class. I want to see more at the table. So, until next time, let's keep rolling with advantage. Thanks.